Hello, Aruzhan. I'm Jasmine, today's host of Global STEM Talks. Thank you so much for joining us. After graduating from New York University Abu Dhabi in 2024 with a degree in psychology, you've continued to pursue research while also working in recruiting and volunteering. So, to start, could you briefly introduce yourself to our viewers and share what you are working on right now?
Okay, great. First of all, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. Right now, I am indeed juggling two main roles that both revolve around understanding people. First one is research based, so it's a linguistics research project that explores unique structure in WH questions in Kazakh language. It's a severely understudied language, and I'm working with a professor from my university on expanding the research on understudied languages since I am a native Kazakh speaker. My second role is in the corporate environment. It's in recruiting. I work as a recruiter at KPMG, where I basically recruit graduate and experienced positions in the field of audit, consulting, back-end office, which is central services, IT, and finances primarily. Mhm. And in general, that's my basic, I think, to do for both of these roles when it comes to professional experience.
Wonderful. Thanks so much for sharing. Let's go
Mhm.
back to your school years. What kind of student were you, and what hobbies or activities shaped your interest in psychology and research?
So I was an introverted student. I wasn't very outgoing. I was very much the typical deeply buried into the books type of person and a student. Um, I was very curious on just navigating a new environment because this was my first time being abroad for a long period of time. And I decided to start with psychology because I wanted to first start from the field of counseling. I thought I wanted to be a counselor, but then I realized that I truly was more interested in the books. As funny as it sounds, I just didn't want to sit and listen to people's problems all day, though no shade to counselors. They are amazing at their job and their hard work is invaluable. But I realized that I'm not that kind of person. I don't think I provide a very good empathetic solution to people. And I personally was leaning more strongly towards statistics at first,
Mm.
and statistics in psychology specifically. So there was a course taught by a linguistics professor regarding stats. And as I was diving more into coding and understanding his field of expertise, I kind of acquired a new friend pretty much. And my professor became my biggest supporter for linguistics research and, in general, exploring Kazakh language, I think specifically, since he's the type of person who's interested in understudied languages and he gets really excited when he has a native speaker from a fairly limited pool of people. So, I think that was my main hobby when it came to school years, like the activities around studying. Regarding other hobbies, there was an experience. I think most of my hobbies is just related to something that I wanted to do in the future. For instance, developmental psychology. For a while, I did SNAP, special needs adaptive program, where we basically work with children in autism spectrum, learn from different specialists, and help them play basketball. So it's a volunteering activity that I did because for a while I thought that I wanted to go into that direction, but then it kind of spiraled back to research again. I think those are main professional hobbies. From personal, I just really like to crochet. I like to joke that I think I was born to be retired because my hobbies are the hobbies of a very old person. For a while, I just wanted to have 9 cats and just crochet and knit all day and maybe do my
Wow.
little research on the side. But somehow I ended up with 2 jobs, and a great amount of opportunities and work.
Sounds very interesting.
Hmm.
And as you said before, you are studying how questions work in Kazakh, which linguists call a double H in situ language. Your team gathered judgments from 116 native speakers, and so far you're not seeing classic island effects, which points towards unselective binding rather than movement. Could you tell us in simple terms what your project is about and why is it important?
Okay, great. So I totally get people not understanding linguistics research. It's basically, I think, voodoo magic. At some point, when you're doing research on the language, you move away from, ironically, language. Everything starts looking just like symbols. I think similar with math, you just stop having numbers at some point. So it's the same thing here. First, let's unpack things like the scope of the question. So, WH questions, what are those? Those are any questions that have WH word, like what, when, where. Those are WH questions. What is the point of these questions is to understand the scope, like to mark the scope. For instance, if we were to ask something, I like cats. Who do I like?
Mhm.
So basically, what happens here is that there is a subject, cats, and when we try to mark the scope, like turn it into a question, the word cats becomes a WH word and moves to the front. And it becomes like, well, cats are not who, so what do I like? So you see, this movement is called WH movement.
Mhm.
And there are several theories when it comes to this movement. Um, First one I would like to point out is the fact that, for instance, in English language, like you saw before, there is a very clear movement of the thing. So the theory would be, hey, like if there is movement, it's marking the scope. That's what it's doing, right? So you can understand that you have to like answer the question this way. But there are languages where there is no movement. For instance, Kazakh. The same sentence in Kazakh sounds like "Min мысықты ұнатамын," which is, if you translate it word for word, is like "I cats like." And if you turn it into a WH question, then it would be "Мен нені ұнатамын," I who like. So you notice how the words cats and who are in the same position, yet Kazakh speakers can still identify whether this question needs to be answered or not, right? Because sometimes there are questions that have WH word, but they don't need to be answered. So in WH questions, you have these two different languages, let's say English and Kazakh. English does the movement and marks the scope. Kazakh doesn't do the movement, yet somehow still marks the scope. So it's a very interesting theory to see that different languages seem to be doing the same thing despite looking very different. So that's basically what I'm studying. I'm studying theories behind that. And our test, in order to test those theories, is an island effect. So what is an island effect? That's basically something that captures the movement. So if you see islands, there is movement. If you do not see islands, there's no movement. Why? Because islands basically are a linguistic structure that basically prevents the movement. Like you have the subject like, I love cats. So an example of that would be Jasmine thinks that Aruzhan likes cats because of their cuteness.
Mhm.
Mm, yes. So if we were to turn it into a question, it would be something like Jasmine thinks Aruzhan likes cats because of what? Right?
Mhm.
And you see how in this case it basically maintained its space in the within the because chunk, but if we were to move it properly, like the way it's intended in English language, like try to move out of the island into like who thinks Aruzhan likes cats because of their cuteness. It sounds just a little bit weird. I might not be giving the perfect example, so if you do not mind, I would like to give a simpler example. It's been a while since I've talked about this topic, since I've been mainly doing recruitment. So if you could just give me 1 second so I can refresh some memories that I have, I will be happy to give you a more clear example because linguistics is very much about 1 second. Yes, it's very much about
Mhm.
it's very much about complicated stuff, and you have to make it way simpler, which can be hard to do from time to
Mhm.
time. Okay. Mhm. Kazakh island effects. Mhm. In general, when it comes to, for instance, works on linguistics, the reason why it's important is because every mechanism that I talk about, um, it's something that is related to studying different diseases. For instance, um, when you study the underpinnings, like the way we process language, you can move to a higher level of studying how the neurons capture that movement. And then once you do that, you can study different diseases because there are
Mhm.
different diseases when it comes to languages. For instance, do you know of a disease where people basically talk, but they do not make sense? Like it's a grammatically sound
Yeah.
sentence, but you don't really understand what's going on. An
Mhm.
example of that would be if I were to say, the cat likes the cat likes paper towel, the cat likes air. It seems like it makes sense, but then when you put it into context of the question, you understand that the person cannot follow the ideas. So that's one example of why it's important. And there's a general area called Broca's area, which basically is considered, as far as I know, language department, and
Mm.
that's the main focus and what we focus on as researchers whenever we understand this kind of stuff. So
Mhm.
let me give you an example of a better example of an island. So let's say Jasmine laughed because Aruzhan owned a red cat. Now,
Uh-huh.
if we put it into island effect, it would be, what did Jasmine laugh because the Arjan owned? So you
Mhm.
see how in the general like statement, there is a object which is a red cat, and then we
Mhm.
turn it into a WH word and move it to the front, like the way we're supposed to, and it's supposed to work, but it doesn't, and that's an
Yeah.
island. And when you see that it doesn't, and the sentence sounds weird, ungrammatical, that's how you know that there's an island effect and a movement happened. Now in Kazakh, when you try to do the same operation, it's still grammatical, and people understand how they're supposed to respond to this question. And that's the interesting thing about languages like Kazakh. So we basically gathered all of this data, compared it to other languages that do similar thing like Kazakh, because those kind of languages that have been already researched, like Chinese, for instance, specifically Mandarin. Um, and we covered two different theories. One of them is basically that the movement in Kazakh is happening, but we can't see it. So it's kind of like magic. We're like, it's there, guys. Just trust us. But a better theory apart from that is um, taken from languages like Japanese. In Japanese, there is a if you are familiar with the language, like desu ka. there's a cup particle. It's a question particle. And what we're talking about is that there is this particle that is not visible in languages like Kazakh that basically guides the movement and doesn't let the sentence sound ungrammatical and weird. So there are a lot of different underpinnings, but the main thing that we're studying is this movement and what is guided by it. So we're studying different types of movement. We're trying to test different types of islands to see at the end all variety when it comes to complicated Kazakh language. I hope
Mhm.
I could answer your question. I
Yes, you
always
totally did.
okay,
That
great.
was very interesting. And you also mentioned that right now you're refining your data set. What steps are you taking to improve the quality of your data?
So basically, what we understood from our previous research that studying online is bad. It's a terrible data. We've got a lot of bots since whenever you use crowdsourcing websites, I think a lot of people use Amazon Turk. We used Yandex Taloka, and it's just bot. Like I had to spend 5 hours just cleaning the data for one experiment, and we had to run multiple, like 10, 15 because people would just write down a bot and it's easy to distinguish, but at some point it just gets daunting trying to keep deleting it. There's also a lot of people who say that they are native speakers, but they're not because they don't really mm, understand basic grammar, if it makes sense. So if you were to rate a question, my name is Jasmine, on the grammaticality out of seven, like one being the worst, seven being perfectly grammatical, how would you rate it? My name is Jasmine.
Mm, well, I would rate it 7.
That's correct. So we would see results of people rating it a four or a three, and they claim to be native speakers of Kazakh, right?
Mm-hmm.
So an equivalent situation happened with us, and we realized that there are a lot of flyers, which is unfortunate, and there are a lot of bots. So instead, we are focusing on conducting this experiment in the field. We have a
Mm-hmm.
village of monolingual Kazakh speakers. And just so you understand how rare that is, currently, most of the Kazakhstan is speaking in Russian. Like Kazakh language is pretty much dying out. A lot of people are trying to preserve it. And in some cities, it is more popular than the others. But in the city that I'm from, almost everything is in Russian.
Mm-hmm.
So, finding a monolingual village where nobody was exposed to Russian or had very limited Russian, and a lot of people don't actually speak Russian, is just amazing. So you do not have to question their to what extent they are native speakers or not, because you know that they are. So we're basically gonna be working with that village. We're going to be creating new data set, new tests, and experiments. So I could travel there. And something really cool is we're going to be using EEG. So our
Mm-hmm.
university has a portable EEG, and I'm really hoping that I can get some data from that because we did study on how to use EEG machines. There's a portable machine, we put it in someone's head, and I'm hoping that I'll get really nice brain waves that I can later analyze and upgrade our research to a higher level.
Mm-hmm. That's amazing. Alongside research, you recruit at KPMG Kazakhstan, supporting hiring for audit, tax, advisory roles in Almaty and Astana, including
Mhm.
internships and graduates openings. Can you walk us through the typical steps from application to offer for interns or assistants? Any
Mhm.
advice on CV tailoring, assessment prep, or case style at interviews?
Obviously, yes. So the application process is pretty standard. It's on the website, and that's generally how the applications go. It always starts from you applying for a certain vacancy, then you undergo phone screening, you might undergo some tests, then an HR interview, then a unit interview, which is basically an interview with hiring managers. Um, and there might be some cases given to you during the interview, um, and afterwards you usually have an offer. For experienced position, it might look a little bit different, but the general guideline is pretty much the same. Regarding any advice on CV tailoring? My personal CV template is by Harvard. I don't know if you've seen it, but it's very popular. I think it's a very good structure. It contains a lot of good advice, and the way it looks is, I would say, pretty perfect. Just make sure to not include unnecessary data. And regarding advice on CV tailoring, I would say there are people who have had 50 years of experience and they can fit it into one page of their resume. So can you.
Mm-hmm.
That's my best advice. Just focus on the key points of each vacancy. Create a separate CV for every position. For instance, um, every vacancy contains keywords. For instance, the skills, a certain program. So if you know them, you better put them down. Even if you put down something really, really similar, but it's not the exact word, I would say correct it and just put the exact word. Why? Because initially, most of the resumes undergo initial screening and they search for those keywords specifically. And if they miss it, because let's be honest, not a recruiter doesn't always have the best expertise on synonyms, and you might just get passed on purely because of that. So make sure to really tailor it and use the keywords as much as you can.
Mm-hmm.
um, Regarding assessment prep, that's a tough one because if you have a recruiter who can provide you with some preparatory materials, that's great. That's not always the case. So I would personally suggest looking at the vacancy, using any AI tool, and asking them to prep you for every scenario. Because from what I've seen, they do a pretty decent job in preparing you for them, and in general, creating prompts. Just try to prepare every day before the interview, at least for 10 to 15 minutes. And I think you would be fine. And same with case style interviews. A lot of managers themselves might use AI to prep themselves before an interview. So it applies for experience and graduate positions. In general, it can be a great tool if you use it correctly.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much for the advice.
Mm-hmm.
And you also volunteered for the New York University in Abu Dhabi's Special Needs Adaptive Program, which is SNAP for short. What drew you to this work, and what did you learn about inclusion and communication?
So, as I mentioned before, it was mainly my desire to work in the developmental psychology sphere. And I think the main lesson I took from that is there were a lot of lessons, but I think uh, instead of a lesson, I would say that no matter how hard it is for you to do something, no matter how tough your situation is, there is always going to be a person there supporting you, and any hard work that you put in will bear fruits. Though you might not expect them. Maybe you put down the seeds for an apple and you got a watermelon or a strawberry, but it will be a fruit that, as long as you nourish it, will come out of something. And the reason why I say this is because the lady that basically started this whole SNAP program and initiative, she was a mother of a person of determination. That's how we name people with disabilities in Abu Dhabi, and I think in other parts of the world as well. Um, Her son, I think, could not join anything at school. So, like, he didn't have a proper school. He couldn't have any hobbies. She just couldn't take him anywhere. He was stuck home because there was nothing to support his growth. Just
Mm-hmm.
and that's devastating to hear as a parent. So what she did was just started from the zero. She started collecting people who were in the same situation as her. She inspired so many people, and she actually pushed with this program. Because of her, I was able to gain this experience. Because of her, this program is happening yearly and it's actually expanding. Now it's not just basketball. We're actually considering teaching swimming, which is, I think, amazing. And the pool of kids is also increasing. And I think just realizing that she even managed to start, I think, Paralympics in Abu Dhabi, like an actual annual, I think, event that happens frequently or fairly frequently, is just amazing because it all started from pretty much nothing.
Mm-hmm. That sounds very interesting. And what unique opportunities or resources at your university have had the biggest impact on your journey so far?
Okay, so there were a lot of opportunities and resources. Um, there's just far too many to name because tickets back home covered, housing covered, insurance covered, any books you might need also covered, any tests that you might take covered, any grant for conferences, it's covered. Do you want to study abroad? You got it. Do you want to study abroad for a month? You can do it 2 times. Do you want to stay in Abu Dhabi and study abroad, like 50% here, 50% there? You can do this 2 times for a month. You can also stay in Abu Dhabi if you want to. We have an MRI machine, we have an EEG machine, we have an MEG machine, and I don't know how many universities have that many resources, to be honest. On top of that, you can have a business coach, like the person who would basically be there for you to help you during your studies. I've had it; it's totally free. Um, any meds is also covered by the insurance. You get a personal counselor for the whole 4 years. You also can get an appointment with a dietitian again throughout the whole 4 years, and you don't pay anything. What else is there? You can also save up for grad school. There's a specific grant for that. After you graduate, there's a lot of opportunities to do research work. There is an opportunity to stay behind and do a summer internship kind of research. And afterwards, you can even get hired as a permanent research assistant for a year and maybe explore more opportunities. And you would think like, oh wow, they are just investing in the science department. No, arts department maybe even better. Any art style that you can think of, our university, I bet you, has the resources for that. Like sculpting, anything AI related, sure, here you go. A lab for creating AI art, done. All the laptops, everything is given to you on a silver platter. So I think I'm still salty that I didn't utilize every resource I could think of, even though I tried my best. But yeah, I think there are so many resources. My biggest one though was my professor. Ironically enough, it was my professor. It was the simplest resource. And obviously the counselor and apart from my counselor, maybe the success factory coach. I think when you're at the university, you're lost. You don't really know what's going on. You're just trying your best and hoping something lands correctly. And when you have mentors who have more experience than you, that can be something pretty great in your journey. So for me, it's personally the connections that I made with my mentors and people who just helped me along the way that had the biggest impact on me as a person and on my journey in general.
Wow. So much resources, so much advantages. NYU is a really great university. This was our this was our last question. Thank you so much
Hmm.
for joining us today, Arjan. Your journey from research to recruiting to volunteering is really inspiring, and I'm sure our viewers learned a lot from your story. And I'm wishing you the best in all your future projects.
Okay, great. It was nice talking to you, Jasmine. Pass my hellos and thank yous to Mina. It was lovely to talk to her as well. I hope the project that you're doing goes well and everything ends great. It's a really great initiative. I love learning about it. And in general, when you guys reached out, it was a pleasure. I wish you all of the best. And if you need anything from me, feel free to reach out. I'd love to stay connected over LinkedIn and other social media. So best of luck to you guys.